Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever it is for you. For me, it is just past midnight here in Kyiv, a major European capital city under siege by the hordes of Mordor. It is just past midnight on Friday, November the 15th. That makes this the news for Thursday, November the 14th, day 996 of Vladimir Putin's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. How do you do? I'm Peter Alexievich, and I see the peeps are coming in. Hey, Anthony Tommy Tom. How you doing tonight? Hey, Nightshade. Hello, Jeff Robbins. How you doing? How's everybody tonight? Evening, Arn. Hey, PT. Hey, Simon. Hey, Darlene. Hey, Richard Prexis. Hey, Jerry O. Thanks, Jerry O. That was very nice of you. I appreciated that. Hey, Esteban. How you living? Hang on, let me bring this one thing up here. Guys, on the Patreon today, usually the segment that I do in the mornings over there called News We Are Waking Up To, normally that is only available to paid Patreon subscribers, right? But today's episode I made public. So for anybody who has never seen an episode of News We Are Waking Up To, the morning news wrap up that I do, take a look at that. It's a good one today, I thought, and it is public. Anybody can view it. Hey, Arn is here. I don't know if Ben Lindback is here. I don't know if Ben comes to the lives, but Ben is very active over on the Patreon account. But Ben and Arn are Patreon supporters, and they are the sponsors of tonight's live. So if we see Arn around, and he's here, I know, thank him, please. Hey, Mad Mike. And Ben Lindback, if he's around. If we see him around, thank him, please. So let's start then with what I woke up to here in Kyiv were pops and bangs of air defense this morning as the Russians targeted Ukraine with 59 Shahed drones. 21 were taken out with air defense, while another 38 were taken out with electronic warfare. That's a 100% interception rate. Incredible. Now, of course, it was a slow night. It was a slow night for the Ukrainians. No missiles, just the 60 drones, 59 drones. Which, over last weekend, we saw over 300 drones in 3 days. And we're going to see more of that. When they have a slow night like this, you just know the weekend is going to be busy. They're going to be doing everything they can to make sure that nobody gets any rest or relaxation over this weekend. You can be sure of that. Whether or not energy infrastructure will be targeted is anybody's guess, but most likely that's what the Russians are going to be shooting for. They are bound and determined to, hey, Wanpa, they are bound and determined to freeze Ukrainian grandmothers in their beds this winter. And we'll see how much of that they are successful at. Somebody in the comments there, Peter K, says, in fear of Trump's Muppet Show. As well you should be, Peter. As well we should all be. Just yesterday, we saw President Biden and President-elect Trump meet at the Oval Office so that Biden could confidently, if somewhat reluctantly maybe, hand over the reins of democracy to Donald Trump. Donald Trump. We saw the President of the United States turn the reins of democracy over to a clown car that's on fire, packed in with fertilizer and fuel oil, being driven over a cliff by a boot-jacked, suicidal Donald Duck. It's insanity. And at the same time, we see Donald tossing out of the car some of the better minds that he had working for him last time. Mike Pompeo, not a guy that I agree with about anything, but a guy I respect, a guy who knows what's going on in the world, a guy who's not afraid to say what's going on in the world, which when you are the most powerful person in the world, you must surround yourself with people who are willing to tell you the truth and make you face the harsh realities of the world. Not somebody who says, "Oh, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir," with tears in their eyes. Give me a fucking break. So we know that Mike Pompeo is not returning. And in addition to the expected lineup of gremlins, ghouls, and goblins of the former administration, people like Stephen Miller, who is the architect of the grand deportation scheme that's going to cost Americans $500 billion and wreck the economy by driving 17% of the GDP growth that we get every year out of it by removing the immigrant population. Insanity of the worst sort. You think inflation is bad now? What is going to happen when you send everybody that picks your oranges back to Ecuador? For crying out loud. It's insanity. Now, in addition to the regular slew of ghouls and goblins that we can expect to come back to the White House with Trump, we are seeing just the most astonishing number of appointments of the least qualified and worst of the worst kind of people in the world. I don't even think that I'm going to comment on this one. Matt Gaetz as Attorney General. Matt Gaetz as Attorney General. If that alone doesn't frighten you, you are not paying attention. You are just not paying attention. Tulsi Gabbard as the Director of National Intelligence. Are you kidding me? Tulsi Gabbard is a mouthpiece for the Kremlin. She was one of the principal people responsible for spreading the bullshit lie that America was funding bioweapons labs in Ukraine. This chick has questioned the intelligence of the remilitarization of Japan, one of our closest allies, who, by the way, is still at war with Russia, technically, right? Just like the Korean War never came to an end. We're just in a ceasefire there. There is still technically a state of war with North Korea. So too, Japan and Russia never signed a peace treaty, just a ceasefire accord. Who do you think doesn't want Japan rearming? Who do we know had plans to attack Japan that were just released last week? We found out about that. It's the Russians, of course. Tulsi Gabbard is so clearly a Kremlin gremlin in the White House that to put her in charge of national intelligence, I mean, this is a woman who met with Assad because poor Assad is so misunderstood, right? The guy who gassed his own people and is a close friend of Putin's. Having this person in charge of our national intelligence is going to mean that our allies don't want to tell us shit. Nobody's going to trust an intelligence community led by Tulsi fucking Gabbard. You've got to be kidding me. Then you've got this pair of immigrant morons, Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. Ramaswamy, the son of immigrant parents, is all on board with the immigrant deportation thing. It's insanity. Elon Musk is an immigrant himself, and he's all on board. And the two of them together are going to be put in charge of a new department, a new federal department, the Department of Federal Efficiency. What does that mean? The federal government is not a business. You're not supposed to be looking at how to cut corners. You're supposed to be looking at how to spend the American taxpayers' money to better the life of the American taxpayer. That is the job of government. We do that through things like the EPA so that every state doesn't have a Flint, Michigan. We do that through things like the Consumer Protection Bureau so that people aren't getting ripped off. We do that through the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, so that the drugs we take we know are effective and side effect free or generally safe. They're going to gut it. Fucking Musk said the most outrageous thing when asked of the $6 trillion budget what he would cut. He suggested he could cut $2 trillion out of it. $2 trillion, a third of the federal budget. You could fire every federal employee, the entire federal government, and not get close to $2 trillion. It's insanity. Insanity of the worst sort. And where it really gets bad, boy, I'll tell you, is with this Pete Hegseth. Pete Hegseth, who legitimately is a military person. He served in the National Guard and was activated and did 2 tours of duty in Iraq, where, if I'm not mistaken, he received 2, not 1, but 2 Bronze Stars. Thank you for your service, sir. And I mean that, right? That's a real accomplishment. But the gentleman does not have any senior military experience. He is a Fox TV news host. He hosts Fox and Friends Weekend Edition. If a war breaks out Monday to Friday, he's not going to know what to fucking do. And there is an extraordinary amount of stupid things that he has said. On Fox News, he told his co-anchors that he hasn't washed his hands in 10 years. This was back during COVID. He hasn't washed his hands in 10 years? Do you not use public toilets? Are you kidding me? One of the most stupid things I've ever seen anybody do was done by Pete Hegseth. There's video, you can see this online, of him in downtown Manhattan throwing an axe. So he's trying to hit a target, and there's a big stop behind the target, right? He tosses the axe, it goes right over the target, over the stop, and it hits a kid from West Point, a drummer who's there playing music in the square that the axe thing was set up in. Unbelievable. If that is not the most perfect analogy for what Pete Hegseth is going to do to our troops, I don't know what is. But that's exactly what he's going to do. They're going to get hurt because of him. So in this strong field of stupid things and stupid things he has said, the most stupid of them was on the subject of Ukraine. He said the words, sure, we want Ukraine to fight if they can, but we don't want the escalation of American weapons intervention to make Putin feel like he's on his heels. We don't want to make Putin feel like he's on his heels. Are you out of your fucking mind? We want him to feel like he's on his back and he can't turn over, like a turtle in the desert sun. We don't want him to feel like he's on his heels. Now look, it's not all bad news. It's not great. Ukraine lost. You got to be kidding me. I live in Kyiv. Don't tell me Ukraine has lost. They certainly haven't. which is not to say that they're not losing. It's not to say that. I don't think Russia is winning, but Ukraine is having a hard time of it. Make no mistake, this is not an easy fight. I know I focus on the positives, but every day we see that grinding away in the Donbass. It is hard. It is hard for these guys. Times are tough, make no mistake. All right, on the subject of good news and some hope, John Thune. So John Thune just beat out Trump's hand-picked appointment. Now, Trump is supposed to be the head of the Republican Party, right? They're supposed to do what he says. I'm very happy to see that they are not, at least not in the United States Senate. Trump had his hand-picked head of the Senate, Rick Scott, who is nothing but a Trump puppet, just repeats whatever bullshit Trump wants repeated. He did not win to lead the Senate majority. So we know that the Republicans took the Senate back in this round of voting. We know that the Senate is going to have a Republican majority. The Republicans in the Senate just had their vote and they elected a leader. And the leader was not the hand-picked Trump puppet. This is good news. It was, in fact, a guy named John Thune, who has been a staunch Republican supporter of Ukraine from day one. Again, good news. One of the things that Rick Scott had promised Donald Trump was that as soon as he took over, he would send the Senate into recess. He would send everybody home, right? Everybody go home. Why? So that Donald Trump wouldn't have to have his clown car cabinet approved by the Senate. He could invoke recess appointments and get the cabinet that he wants put together without the interference and oversight, the advice and consent of the Senate. Now, Thune is not clearly, do I look like I'm crying? Come here and say that to my face. Oh, I am a loudmouth. And you know what's never going to happen? You're never going to close it. You're never going to close. There is no world in which, in the face of this insanity, I am going to shut up. That's not a thing that's going to happen. Now, no, Thune is not the puppet. Here's why. On the subject of the recess appointments, he didn't make a commitment to that. He said he would consider it, but he didn't lay down and take it. Here's a guy who's thinking for himself. And I know the maggots hate that. They hate anybody who doesn't repeat exactly what their orange Jesus says as if it were true. Well, the rest of us have a perspective on the world that is informed by facts, not the whim of a dementia patient in bronzer. Give me a break. Bah, bah, bah. Now, these are my favorite John Thune quotes. You ready? Let the Ukrainian people win. Let the Ukrainian people win. It's a good quote, John. We didn't hear much of that from the rest of American politicians. We heard bullshit about as long as it takes, whatever it takes, but never the words let Ukraine win, nor the words defeat Russia. But we heard them from John Thune. We need, this is quote, end quote, we need to make sure that Ukraine has the weaponry and resources that it needs to defeat the Russians. He said the words, this guy. So while I do not agree with his social policies or his tax agenda, on the subject of Ukraine, I would say that John Thune and I are of one mind, that we must not abandon our allies at this critical time. and that we must untie Ukraine's hands and stop micromanaging this war from D.C. We agree on that. Now, in economic news from Russia, the ruble continues its free fall. We looked at it last night. It was at, I want to say 98.68. It ended today at 99.66. It's edging close to that 100 rubles to the dollar. In fact, some international exchanges, including investing.com, did have it briefly over the 100 rubles to the dollar mark today. If we just wrap that up, if we just take a minute to talk about that, and some of the other leading economic indicators coming out of Russia, it should be clear to everybody that the Russian economy is headed for disaster. As so many inside Russia keep saying, chiefly the chief executive of Rostec, and now the chief executive of Lada, the automaker, Russia's largest automaker, and the head of the CEO of the largest real estate development company in Russia, which is saying it is now looking at bankruptcy without a government bailout. So with all of that in mind, interest rates are currently at 21%. There is talk of taking them to 24% at the last meeting of the central bank board in December. I think it's December 12th or 15th. Something like that. I cannot begin to tell you the kind of damage that would do. You'll no longer be moderating the price of the ruble at 25% core interest. You'll be putting people out of business at a massive rate. Bankruptcies in Russia are already up 600% year over year. There's I want to say it was 2,600 businesses in last quarter and another 2,600 next quarter. It's huge. PMI, purchases of private mortgage insurance are down 52% because nobody can buy a house. New home sales are down 62% year over year. In some parts of Russia, down 82%. Inflation is officially running at 9.1%. But according to Hankey, who's an inflation expert at Johns Hopkins, it is much more likely at 27%. That real inflation in Russia is 27%. And the Russian bond market is in the toilet, and it is circling the drain. Nobody believes that if they buy Russian bonds today, that they're going to have any value in 8 years when they try to cash them in. And they can't raise the money. They just can't raise the money. More good news. Ahead of winter, Naftogaz, which is Ukraine's largest producer of natural gas, has increased production by 6%, as well as increased storage capacity, so that hits on infrastructure over the winter should be able to be mitigated. That is our hope. Turning to the front line, the Ukrainian Armed Forces says that the Russians are hiding in Ukrainian uniforms. Now, this is a clear violation of the Geneva Convention. And this is not the first time that we have heard this. This report is coming from the Kupiansk direction. But we've had this report variously from the Donetsk region and Toretsk specifically, that the Russians are hiding on the battlefield in Ukrainian uniforms. Now, if that is not the bottom of the barrel when it comes to being a scumbag, I don't know what is. I don't know what is. So we know that Kupiansk has been under a lot of pressure. It is being reported today that the first tanks and APCs of the Russian Federation have entered Kupiansk, but were destroyed. The small column of armored vehicles and the personnel with them were destroyed or repelled. And so Kupiansk remains in of armored vehicles and the personnel with them were destroyed or repelled. And so Kupiansk remains in are in Ukrainian hands, but the Russians are pressing there. There's a lot of very interesting stuff going on in Kursk. One of the things that's making the rounds today, you may see this video. If you see this video, be aware it is unlikely what it says it is. So the Russian Marines of the 155th Marine Guards Naval Brigade has released video of an FPV drone of theirs that they claim destroyed a Challenger 2 tank. The only thing is that is not what the video shows. It shows an FPV drone zeroing in and hitting the most heavily protected part of the tank. Unlikely it would be destroyed, therefore. That's where 60% of the armor is. And what we see, really, is nothing then. The drone is a kamikaze drone, it explodes, and the Russians are claiming they destroyed a Challenger 2 tank. This is highly unlikely. Highly unlikely. If anything, what they spotted was a decoy. It had no cope cage, it had no explosive reactive armor on it, or it just wasn't even a Challenger at all. But there is this video going around, and if you see it, be very skeptical of it. Well, take a look at it. Let me know what you think. But to me, there is no evidence in there that a tank was destroyed, let alone a Challenger 2. Now, this is a complicated thing to do without maps. And so for the Patreon guys, check my Patreon tomorrow morning for news we are waking up to, because I'm going to do a whole map. Oh, Walter Williamson is saying it was a fake tank. Was it? Was it, Walter? Have we gotten some confirmation on that? That's what I assumed, right? That's what I assumed. We saw a good video yesterday of some howitzers, some phony howitzers that were destroyed. But they were in Ukrainian-controlled territory. Anyway, here's the thing about the Kursk incursion and what's happening up there. I don't think that we can understate the intelligence and the strategic thinking of General Syrskyi. We have seen that the road from Koronevo is just a kill zone, where the Russians are just losing bigly every day. Now we saw something else happen. A large armored column attempted to encircle a Ukrainian salient, and they penetrated deep into the Ukrainian territory. The Ukrainians all got out of the way. They literally just left their positions in the towns along this road and went up into the mountains. Then the Russians came in. They came in a couple kilometers through the towns, down the one road that is there. And then the Ukrainians came down from the hills and eliminated the entire column and all of the people in it. Now, you could say to yourself, well, wait a minute, if the Russians were in there, why didn't more reinforcements come from behind? They did. They couldn't get through. The Ukrainians closed the ass end of the advance and then just eliminated everybody inside there. Again, from the high ground, it appears to me that General Syrskyi is a guy who exploits the terrain to his advantage every chance he gets. And we're seeing it over and over again in Kursk. And it's stunningly effective. And it's why we see Russian losses approaching 2,000 men a day. I mean, it was only on Sunday, that we had a record-breaking 1,770 Russian casualties. Monday, that record was blown out of the water with 1,950. And then the next day, it was 1,770 again. These losses are not sustainable. The Ukrainians are so close, with the help of the West, so close to breaking Russia. I am so afraid that Donald Trump is going to come in now on his white horse and save his lover boy, Putin. That is my greatest fear right now, because they are so close. For everybody shouting about surrender, or I'm sorry, not about surrender, about peace negotiations, about peace talks, I want you to know what you're really asking for is capitulation. Capitulation to a terrorist regime that summarily executes civilian women in the streets for no reason. Why do I say this? Because we got Ukrainian drone footage today of a woman in the town of Tierney in Donetsk, who appeared to just be going about her daily life when she was approached by some Russian soldiers. There are a few words between them, and then they gun her down in the street like an animal. It is obscene. It is a sin. These people, they're animals. They're absolute animals. And I'm tired of trying to humanize them. After all that the Ukrainians have suffered, after everything that they have sacrificed, for everybody shouting for them to give up their territory for peace, you're really asking them to capitulate and forget about the millions of their friends and families that are living day to day under the tender mercies of the Ruski Mir. No. All of sanity and reason says no to this obscene proposal. But the Russians are not stopping. The Russians are not stopping. It appears as though they are preparing for a large-scale offensive in Zaporizhia now. The focus has been Donetsk, Luhansk, and Kursk. But it looks as though they are gearing up for an offensive in Zaporizhia. They have been softening up the targets there with heavy artillery and glide bomb attacks on the city itself. And they appear to be massing troops for an offensive. So we'll keep our eye on that. Now, on the subject of the Russian Federation, two things. Roman Ivanishka, a Russian serviceman with the 39 Separate Guards Motorized Rifle Brigade, was captured on June 10th, in Donetsk. It was in Donetsk. Near Stepove. He was captured near Stepove. He was then sent home in a POW transfer. He is now facing 35 years in jail for surrendering, for treason. So if you are a Russian soldier and you are captured, you don't want to get sent home because they might try you for treason and send you to jail for 35 years. Because what you were supposed to do was fight to the death. You are not supposed to come home. In the words of the Patriarch Kirill, the head of the Russian Orthodox Church, he tells groups of guys going to the front that he's blessing that they will be rewarded in heaven for their sacrifice, that they are not going to the front to fight, they are going to the front to die. This is what the Patriarch of the Russian Orthodox Church says to soldiers who are heading to the front. And God forbid they come home. They're looking at 35 years in a penal colony. Final funny to kind of wrap things off, Lavrov, Putin's spokesperson and lapdog, was complaining today that travel isn't the same as it used to be because he can't get his plane refueled anywhere he goes. After a couple of incidents, including one in Brazil and one in South Africa, where the locals refused to refuel his plane so he could leave, Lavrov was complaining about what it is to be him. Again, I want to thank Arn and Ben, who are the sponsors of tonight's live. They joined the Patreon at the mother level, and so once a month they get a live sponsorship, and I thank them publicly for their ongoing critical support of this channel. Guys, I could not do this without the Patreon people. If you have never thought of long-term support for this channel, please, and you can kick me $5 or $10 a month, please join the Patreon. If you want to sponsor a live, the link to PayPal is in the description. $50 gets you a live sponsorship. Although sometimes I do Saturday shows where somebody like you, Jerry O, I'll bundle you with a bunch of people and send you a shout out and thanks. I do want to shout out and thanks Jerry O today because he very generously PayPal'd me some grocery money last night. And I could really use it this week. I had to pay the rent. And the rent is more than 1/3 of my income. Anyway, big thanks to the moderator team, who are the best moderators on the Tickety Talk: Cheyenne, Vanetta, PTJ, and Travis. Thanks to Lars, who has the Discord server and the Alexievich archive. Thanks to Nightshade, who has the Peter's Peeps public group on the Book of Faces, where we post these live videos every day. And big thanks to Vanetta, who manages our Google Docs share. Vanetta, have you got the Google Docs link handy? Put that up there. There you can find message templates to the UN Secretary General calling for his resignation after he bowed to Vladimir Putin at the BRICS summit. You can find letters to the White House requesting Joe Biden take the cuffs off Ukraine before he leaves office and gets his shit together and get it over here. Okay. So that's the team. And we could not do this channel without the team. So very grateful to everybody that supports us, either financially through the Patreon or with the work, the everyday work of this channel. There was something I wanted to say. Well, let's go to questions. We got about 20 minutes. So let's go to Q&A, and I'll see if I think of it. Do you think China will overtake the U.S. as the superpower? Frank, I don't know. We're in uncharted territory here. If America really abandons... Oh, thanks, Witwit. I really appreciate it because Thanksgiving is coming, the holidays are coming, and, you know, there's just expenses there. Anyway, I never imagined a world where the United States would give up its leadership role in the world and seek to go hide under its blankie and suck its thumb because it's worried about trans people doing story time. That is insanity to me. That is just complete insanity to me. Hey, Maddie, right? I do take Cash App. The Chinese are different. They're different from the rest of the world. They are expansionist, but they're very cautious about it. And they are wrestling with the hyper-modernization of their economy and their society and are facing challenges that the rest of us are not. The disastrous one-child policy is having generational impacts on that society. And so it is very difficult to say how China is going to emerge in the next 100 years. It is clear that we have made mistakes with China. We have given them the solar industry through our own incessant addiction to fossil fuels. We have just given up that whole industry. All the innovation is coming from China. It's a sin. There's no reason for it. All we need is a little bit of incentive in the U.S., and we'd be making the most efficient panels on Earth. I want to address Mel's point here. Mel says, if the U.S. goes fascist, and I assume what Mel means is that if the U.S. goes fascist, then China will emerge as a superpower. Here's the problem with that statement. The U.S. just went fascist. I will repeat that. We should all be very concerned because the U.S. just went fascist. It is not a question of when. America voted the mustache man in. Their tangerine Palpatine. America has gone fascist. Now, whether or not it can be pulled back is another story. But it's a problem. Millions didn't, but the majority did. And every one of his economic suggestions is going to be disaster for the U.S. economy. This tariffs thing? Jesus Christ, did you not have an 8th grade social studies or history class? Do you not know what the Hawley Smoot tariffs were and how they brought the Great Depression deeper into America? You've got to be kidding me. Economists have rejected tariffs as a bad idea for a century. It's too late, Mike. That's the government you got, pal. I hate to break it to you. Now, whether or not they're going to be able to suspend habeas corpus, suspend the Constitution, do the evil that they wish to do, that's the part where the rest of us can still fight and try to stop it. How do you think that Trump just lied about ending the war? Well, of course he lied. He lies about he doesn't lie. He just says things that he thinks people want to hear and that he thinks maybe he can turn into the truth or something. The guy has no understanding of what the truth is. For him, there is no, like Putin, there is no objective truth. It's just whatever he says at the moment, wherever his whims take him. So he made these claims that he could end the war in 24 hours, claims that have been broadly rejected by all sides. And his peace plan, so-called, is a non-starter for everybody, including his buddy Putin. So if that's all he's got, he's not going to have any impact on this war. Right, Bobby? Bobby's got the right idea. We have to continue the fight. Hopefully our laws and institutions will curtail him. Exactly. He definitely cheated or had help to win. Mel, we know the Russians spend $1.9 billion a year pumping disinformation into the world. And we know that at least a third of the American electorate has totally succumbed to this nonsense. They think the Democrats control the weather. Why not the Republicans? They were the ones in charge under Trump. If you could control the weather, why didn't Trump actually make that hurricane go where he wanted it rather than draw on the map with the marquee where it wasn't? So they've had lots of help They've had lots of help from useful idiots like Tulsi Gabbard and Matt Gaetz, Josh Hawley, these idiots who are bought and paid for by the Kremlin and now are going to be taking lead cabinet positions in order to what? To gut the federal government. That's what. Gas still expensive, though. Why is that? Gas is still expensive because of the OPEC 2023 decision to cut production by over 1 million barrels a day. So Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, was pushing for $100 a barrel oil. And so him and his OPEC plus guys got together. Saudi Arabia cut production, I want to say by 2 million barrels a day. It was a record production cut. Anyway, it was a lot, right? It was a 7-figure cut just for Saudi Arabia. Russia cut production by over 850,000 barrels, almost 1 million barrels a day. Everybody in OPEC Plus cut production with the intention of driving the price of oil up. That has not happened. And now that Trump is back in office, the oil-producing nations know that Trump is going to drill, baby, drill. And so the Saudis have said that they're going to up production. This is going to drive the costs of oil down. And hopefully we'll see the price of gas come down. Horror Chick is saying that 270 is not expensive. 270 is cheap. If I'm not mistaken, last week the average price of regular in the U.S. was 308. So you must be someplace where they produce or that's close to production, Horror Chick, and definitely not on the left coast where it's closer to 4. Trump will continue to blame the Dems for his every policy decision that fails. Oh, yeah, he will. That's what he does. And the sycophant, ignorant idiots that listen to him will lap his lies up. Oh, yes, Donald, thank you for Veterans Choice. Thank you for Veterans Choice, Donald. We owe you that. You got us Veterans Choice. He just lies and they believe him. It's ridiculous. Yeah, Charles, you still have a Second Amendment to protect yourself. I don't know if it protects the country. Because if Trump does what he's saying he's going to do, he's going to turn loose the military on the American population. I'm sorry, but your deer rifle is no good against a tank. Gas is not freaking expensive in the U.S. Not compared to Europe, it's not. But compared to historical U.S. prices, people feel the pinch. Raleigh, North Carolina, $2.79. 47 miles to the gallon, huh, Fitz? Nice. That's what we want to see, is more efficiency. 1 out of 4 cars, new cars sold in the U.S. this year will be electric. And that makes a big difference. Take self-defense, all you women. You know, Maddie, I'm a big fan of guns. I think every woman should be armed and should be capable. So that means every Saturday morning you get up, you go to the shooting range, you do some practice, you make that thing an extension of yourself. Eli is saying that in the city, gas is $2.99. I don't know what city that is. But right there, $2.99, that's 29 cents a gallon more than Horror Chick is paying. Trump wants oil, Musk wants electric, nice mix. Norway's up to 1 out of 3 electric cars in Norway. Oh, come on, Eli. You couldn't have been in New York City. There's no gas stations in New York City. Not in Manhattan, anyway, right? You're in the right New York City. Hey, don't diss New York and Ukraine. Yeah, now it's interesting. Musk is following Trump around everywhere. Did you see what Trump said? Trump said that he couldn't get rid of the guy. He was stuck with him. He couldn't get rid of him. He's part of the team now. Can't get rid of him. Why is that, Donald? Do you not get to pick which Putin puppets are in your orbit? Right? Like you all have to be on the same stage doing the bidding of the Kremlin gremlins? That's what it looks like to me. Elon didn't buy Trump. Putin bought Elon and gave him to Trump. Cheap oil will bankrupt the industry. Elena, I think that's why in the United States, and Mr. Global made this point recently, it's unlikely that we're going to see a lot of drill, baby, drill. Right, because we have output that exceeds our usage right now. So as the price comes down, it's unlikely that we'll see a lot of new production because it won't pay for itself. Because you're right, the oil's going to be cheap. So what the oil industry is likely to do is, under Trump, we'll see a lot of leasing. A lot of national parks, national lands, they'll get sold off. They likely won't get developed anytime soon, but the right to develop them will exist should market conditions change. I think that that's probably the most likely short-term scenario for O&G in the U.S. under Trump. $295 in Orlando, Florida. So I thought that the average across the country was 308, but it sounds like I must have looked at that chart longer than I thought ago, because it sounds like things are down to around 3 now. Dark Irish, Trump doesn't want Musk around. Musk is a billionaire competitor, right? I mean, he's a competitor for the limelight. He's just as big a weirdo as Trump is. He doesn't want him around. He's stuck with him. He's the white elephant that Vladimir Putin gave him for Christmas. Hello, Latvia. How can Trump fix the USA? Trump can't fix his own hair. He's certainly not going to fix the USA. His goal is to destroy the USA. Make no mistake. Hutma says 250 gas. I don't know where that is, though. Tesla stock dropping because Trump cancels tax credit. Really? I thought Tesla was way up after the election. I thought it was up 14%. 253 in Kansas, Big Hawk. Money does not buy class. You are right about that. It's a fairly dated book. I think it was originally published in 1982. The last name is Fussell, Fussell, Paul Fussell. Dr. Paul Fussell of Pennsylvania, the University of Pennsylvania, published a book in, I think around 1982, called Class, Deconstructing the American Class System. Now, it's a fairly dated piece of writing at this juncture. However, it is very telling what the signs of class in our supposedly classless society are. And for anybody interested in that kind of anthropology, I recommend it highly. It's a great read. Did you see about the Russian chef who opposed the war and was found unalived in Belgrade? There is a rash of Russian dissidents who are being found unalived all around the world. All around the world. Everybody always thinks they have it bad, Sharon. That is not a unique thing to Americans. Everybody thinks they're suffering all the time, you know? The grass is always greener. And then guys like Trump and Putin play on that. Why are people saying that the stock market will boom? Well, because Trump and the Republicans are very friendly to business, right? One of the things that people are expecting is that they are going to gut Social Security. One of the most successful social welfare programs in the history of the United States that is not paid for by the American taxpayer, but rather paid for by taxes on employee wages that are paid by corporations. And so if they leave all the old people in America eating cat food and unable to pay their rent, throw them all out in the street, the corporate fat cats can line their pockets. That's why Wall Street is celebrating. Yeah, Walter, well, dude, you're like a well-adjusted person then is what that means. Right? Like you understand that you are living in one of the probably the richest country in the history of the human race, where things like science and progress were once valued. I mean, we have such great lives in America. It is very hard to understand these grievance-ridden screeds of the opposition. I don't get it. I do not get it. Slick, I appreciate that sentiment. I do, but you shouldn't have to take care of your parents. Right? You shouldn't have to go bankrupt taking care of an older generation. That's what Social Security is for. A society is supposed to be judged by how well it cares for those in it who cannot care for themselves. And we are failing at that. We are failing badly. Oh, I love Soylent Green. Soylent Green is people. I don't know what that means. Do you think Trump gonna live Europe? I don't know what that means. It's not really English. In Sweden, you pay $34 for a surgery. Yeah, how is it possible that the United States is the only one of 35 industrial nations to not manage to socialize medicine successfully? How is that possible? Cold and snow are on their way. Yes, they are. There's already been snow in various parts of Ukraine and on the front line. No, that's the problem. Americans do not travel. It really is a problem. Do you know the average American only travels to 12 states in their lifetime? We're a country of 50 states, and they are different. To not even see your own country is insanity to me. The updated Russian death toll rate. I, I, if you're talking about the population of the Russian Federation, they're losing one person every 41 seconds. So the population of Russia is dropping dramatically. And if you're talking about the rate at the front, it's around 1,700 KIA and WIA a day. A day. A large percentage of that coming from Kursk, where they are just pushing. Yeah, Mel, and I don't understand it at all, this thing about the trans people. I mean, how do trans people affect my life? Not at all. Except maybe the occasional drag show. Or if I go to P.F. Chang's. No, not P.F. Chang's. What was the name of that place in Manhattan where all the waiters were drag queens? Anyway, it doesn't matter. You know, it's like the immigrant thing. This notion that immigrants are all there to commit crime, when we know statistically immigrants commit less crime because they're afraid of being deported. They want to be able to stay. Yes, Soylent Green is people. I think I said that, didn't I? As a retiree, didn't I pay into a contract with the U.S. for the past 50 years? Yes, sir, you did. And if you voted for Trump, he's about to take it away from you. Slick, I don't know what's going to happen with Social Security. If the Republicans really fuck with it, I don't know. I mean, we keep saying these things. Like, if the Republicans do this, it'll be the end of them. If they do that, it'll be the end of them. And it never is. And they seem to cross every line of decency and tradition that we have ever held sacred in the United States. Reagan was a problem. He really, really did a lot of damage to America. There's just no two ways about it. Harris-Walz lost. They're no longer meaningful in any way. There's no reason for us to hear from them ever again. Waltz might have a shot at the presidency, but I would think Harris's career is done. It's all just a Trump lie that everybody bought. Yep. Not everybody. Only 50.07% of the population. Quebecois is here and have just visited Manitoba because I don't have the finances to do more. Right, that's what you do. You get out and you see your own country. You ever go to Stratford, Ontario, to the Shakespeare Festival? That is a trip, boy. You should make that trip. That is a great trip. It's some of the best local theater that you can find anywhere. Really great stuff. Mike Johnson said they're looking for ways to save Social Security. What a load of bullshit. There's nothing wrong with Social Security. That's a lie. Social Security costs the American taxpayer nothing. It is paid for out of wage taxes paid by employers. And the whole idea is that you have to keep expanding the population so that you have more workers than retired people. And as long as you do that, it is solvent. Been to Stratford, upon Avon. Yeah, the Bard's house is still there. You can see where he used to beat his son in the window. It's surprisingly cheap. It is surprisingly cheap to go to the Caribbean or South America, depending on where you are. Yeah, especially if you go in summer. My ex-wife and I used to love going to Jamaica in August, which is a dumb time to go. Okay. Good night, Colin. Yeah, I'm just about to wrap it up here. Okay, so guys, it is past 1 o'clock in the morning here in Kyiv. So I'm going to call it a night. I'm deeply appreciative of everybody that stuck around. I got to say, though, just in closing, I'm deeply thankful to Ben and to Arn, who are long-term supporters of this channel on the Patreon. Without them, this channel would not exist. Now, look, I know it's fun to throw roses on the screen and stuff, but if you think that makes me money, you are wasting your time, right? That one rose there, do you know what that translates to? 1/10 of 1 American cent. It is just putting money in the pockets of TikTok. So please, if you want to help me out and keep this channel on the air, keep me in Ukraine, please join the Patreon or sponsor a live. The PayPal is in the description. Thank you, Arn. Sure do appreciate it. Oh, Nightshade, you're fucking hysterical. No, 1 ruble. 1 penny is equal to 1 ruble, pal. That's a riot. Yeah, you're right. Oh, you're right. It's 100 rubles. 1/10 of, wait. It's $1 to 100 rubles, right? So that's, the ruble is worth a penny. Ruble is worth a penny. So 1/10 of a penny, it's 1/10 of a ruble. It's 1/10 of a ruble. Because because ruble equals a penny. So it's the same. It's 1/10 of a ruble. I do have Venmo and Cash App. At least I used to. But if you message me, I can give you the name on those accounts. I don't know. I think on those I'm Pytor, Pytor. Did you just check it, Kadal? Is it 1 to 9, 99.8? I think that's what you meant to type, 1 to 99.8. Because when I checked it at the end of close of business, it was 99.66. I don't want to, PT, because those solutions, Cash App and Venmo, do not integrate with Western Union. And that's how I have to get the money here. I can't get it from PayPal directly. But PayPal at least works with Western Union. So I have to use PayPal. Well, thanks, James. I sure appreciate it. James, that'll make you, if you would like, you could be one of the sponsors of my Thanksgiving dinner. I'm doing Thanksgiving dinner here for probably about 20 Ukrainians who make my life here and my work here possible. And after dinner, we'll stop and we'll chat with those real people that are here. And I'm looking for sponsors for that dinner, if you would like to be one of them. The turkey's going to cost me about $35. With everything else, it's probably going to be about a $200 bill. So that's about half of the bill. Thank you, Sweden. If they're here, they speak English because I don't speak Ukrainian or Russian. It's terrible. You should see my Ukrainian teacher, how frustrated he is with me. I am as safe as any Ukrainian is. I am as safe as anybody else in this country. I'm in the safest place you could be here. I'm in uptown Kyiv. And there's no place safer in this country than here. It's when I leave the city that it's more concerning. The country is not without its faults. Don't get me wrong, nowhere is perfect. It's full of people. But what I see here are people who are bound and determined not to give up their sovereignty, who are reminding me every day of the cost of freedom and democracy in the world. Whenever I meet Ukrainians and they say how grateful they are to us Americans, I make a point of telling them, I think it should be the other way around. That we in the United States should be grateful to Ukraine for reminding us of what it costs, what it takes, what you gotta do to preserve your rights in the world, your own sovereignty, your own integrity, your own nation. Because these are the guys doing all the bleeding and the dying. Yeah, PayPal doesn't take anything from me. It literally costs me nothing to transfer the money here. Western Union, on the other hand, they take about 5%. So that is tough. That is tough. That I would like to find a way around that. Well, I think somebody just did, right? Half of it. Well, the PayPal is in the description. If you want to sponsor the Thanksgiving dinner, and maybe Jerry O, I'll put you on that list of Thanksgiving dinner sponsors. I don't know if you're still here, pal. But I'll put you on that list of Thanksgiving dinner sponsors. So we need about $200 for the dinner. Anybody that can kick into that, just PayPal it to me and say you want it to be for Thanksgiving dinners, and I'll put the money to that. I don't. Patreon does take 8% of what you give, unless you pay through Apple Pay. Then Patreon takes 8% and Apple takes 30%. Do not sign up on Patreon using Apple Pay. And if you are signed up on Apple Pay, please change to a credit card. Because Apple is just grabbing 30%. Obscene. And they do nothing except the transaction. Patreon gives me a web platform support that I could never have built myself. And that is worth something, boy. That is worth something. Do you think Ukrainians will attempt to make a low-yield nuke to ensure Russia will not use? Oh, Steve, how did we not talk about nukes tonight? How did I skip that? Oh, because of the Senate thing. Oh, damn it. I have a whole report on this. You can actually see my initial thoughts on this. If you go to the Patreon account, today there's a video published, News We Are Waking Up To, for today's date, November 14th. And you can get kind of my extended thoughts on that. Now, my thinking since this morning has even refined a little bit further. So tomorrow night, I will make a point of bringing up the nuke discussion, but it's a long discussion to have. Do I think that they will attempt it? I don't know. I don't know. As I have been saying all along since this question came up, they certainly have the scientific know-how to do it. Like, that shouldn't even be, that's not the question. If the Ukrainians want a nuclear device, they will have it. Period. Full stop. But anyway, we will talk about that tomorrow night. Please come back tomorrow live at 5, right here on the Tickety Talk with the best moderator team there is, Cheyenne, Vanetta, PTJ, and Travis. Thanks to Nightshade. Thanks to Lars. Thanks to Vanetta. Thanks to everybody who hung out for this whole extended session. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much. Make it a great day.